The late afternoon sun cast long golden streaks across the wooden planks of the pier, the distant hum of laughter and carnival music blending with the crash of waves below. Tourists wandered casually, unaware that just a few yards away, a moment of cruelty was unfolding. The girl sat quietly in her wheelchair, her hands gripping the metal rims as she tried to steady herself. Her presence was small, almost invisible to most, but not to the group of men who had decided she was an easy target. One of them stepped forward, his voice sharp and mocking. "Move, Cripple," he barked, his tone dripping with contempt. Before she could respond, his foot lashed out, striking the side of her chair. The impact jolted her, her body lurching as fear flashed across her face. The others laughed, a harsh, echoing sound that cut through the warm atmosphere like broken glass. She tried to speak, to protest, but her voice trembled under the weight of humiliation. People nearby turned their heads, some pausing briefly, others choosing to look away. The world seemed to shrink around her, her vulnerability exposed under the open sky. Another kick came, harder this time, sending her wheels scraping against the boards. Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had learned long ago how cruel the world could be, but this moment felt heavier, lonelier. Then something shifted. At first, it was just a distant rumble, steady, unmistakable, the sound of engines. Heads began to turn as the noise grew louder, closer, until it rolled across the pier like thunder. One by one, motorcycles came into view, chrome glinting in the sunlight. They didn't rush, they didn't shout, they simply arrived. The men who had been laughing fell silent. A line of bikers formed, their presence filling the space with an unspoken authority. Leather vests, worn and marked with stories, stood in quiet contrast to the chaos that had been there moments before. One of them stepped forward, his gaze fixed not on the girl, but on the men who had hurt her. No words were needed. The shift in power was immediate, undeniable. The bullies stepped back. The girl, still shaken, looked up as the sea of bikers surrounded her, not as a threat, but as a shield. And for the first time since the moment began, she wasn't alone. The silence that followed felt heavier than the chaos before it. The bullies, who moments ago had laughed so loudly, now shifted uneasily under the steady gaze of the bikers. No one rushed forward. No fists were raised, yet the tension in the air was undeniable. It was the kind of quiet that carried weight, the kind that made people reconsider their next move very carefully. One of the bikers, an older man with a weathered face and calm, controlled posture, took a slow step forward. His boots echoed softly against the wooden planks as he positioned himself between the girl and the men who had attacked her. "Problem here?" he asked, his voice low but firm. It wasn't a question seeking an answer, it was a warning wrapped in calm words. The man who had kicked the wheelchair scoffed at first, trying to recover some of his earlier bravado. "Not your business," he muttered, though his voice lacked the same bite as before. His friends didn't laugh this time. They stayed quiet, glancing at the growing number of bikers surrounding them. The older biker tilted his head slightly, his eyes never leaving the group. "Looks like it became our business the moment you decided to pick on someone who couldn't fight back." Behind him, another biker crouched beside the girl, his movements careful and gentle, completely opposite to the violence she had just experienced. "You okay?" he asked softly. She nodded, though her hands still trembled. He adjusted her wheelchair, making sure it was steady, his presence calm and reassuring. Meanwhile, the circle tightened, not aggressively, but enough to make it clear there was no easy exit without accountability. The bullies shifted again, their confidence slipping further with each passing second. One of them mumbled something about leaving, trying to brush it off like nothing had happened. But the bikers didn't move. "You're going to apologize," the older man said plainly. The words hung in the air. For a moment, it seemed like the situation could go either way, but then the tension broke. The man who had started it all finally looked at the girl, avoiding her eyes. "Sorry," he muttered, the word forced and hollow, but spoken nonetheless. His friends quickly echoed him, eager to end the confrontation. Only then did the bikers step aside, creating a path. The bullies wasted no time, walking away faster than they had arrived, their earlier arrogance completely gone. As the noise of the pier slowly returned, the girl took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling as she processed what had just happened. The same world that had moments ago felt cold and indifferent now felt different, not perfect, but not entirely cruel either. Because sometimes, when cruelty shows up, so does something stronger. The energy on the pier slowly softened as the bullies disappeared into the crowd, their presence fading like a bad echo. For a few moments, no one spoke. The ocean breeze carried the scent of salt through the air, and the distant laughter from the rides returned, as if the world was gently stitching itself back together. The girl sat still in her wheelchair, her breathing finally beginning to steady. Though the shock hadn't fully left her eyes, the older biker turned toward her, his expression no longer stern but warm, almost fatherly. "You're safe now," he said quietly. It wasn't dramatic, not loud, but it was enough. Something in his voice grounded her. The tightness in her chest eased just a little. Another biker, younger, with tattoos running down his arms, stepped forward, holding a bottle of water. "Here," he said, offering it carefully. She hesitated for a second, then took it with slightly shaking hands. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice fragile but sincere. A small crowd had gathered at a distance, not out of fear, but curiosity. Some people looked ashamed for not stepping in earlier. Others simply watched in silence. But the focus remained on the circle of bikers and the girl at its center. "Do you have someone with you?" the older man asked. She shook her head slowly. "I came alone. I just wanted to see the pier," she replied, her words carrying a mix of sadness and quiet courage. The bikers exchanged brief glances. No long discussion, no hesitation, just understanding. One of them gestured toward a nearby bench overlooking the ocean. "Let's get you somewhere more comfortable," he said. Carefully, respectfully, they guided her wheelchair across the wooden boards, making sure every movement was smooth. They didn't crowd her now, they gave her space, standing nearby, but not overwhelming. One of them cracked a light joke about how the Ferris wheel looked scarier from the ground than it did from the top, earning a small, unexpected smile from her. It was the first sign that the moment of fear was beginning to loosen its grip. Minutes passed, and the tension dissolved into something calmer, almost peaceful. The girl looked out at the ocean, the sunlight dancing across the waves, and, for the first time since it all happened, she felt something shift in sight. Her not just relief, but strength. Before they left, the older biker spoke again. "There are people out there who will try to make you feel small," he said gently. "But there are more who won't let that happen." She nodded, holding on to those words, as the group of bikers eventually walked away, engines roaring back to life in the distance. They didn't look back for recognition or thanks. They simply left, like they had arrived, quietly, purposefully, and the girl stayed there for a while longer, watching the horizon, knowing that even in the middle of cruelty, kindness had found her.